Welcome to part 2 of the Introduction to NVivo Social Media Analysis Workshop. In this video, we will be going over NVivo dataset features and chart options for social media analysis. We'll also be going into how to do manual coding using word frequency and usage tools, how to auto-code social media data, and how to create word clouds and do matrix coding with social media data. So let's go ahead and open up NVivo. So first, we're going to go over how to import a file from NCapture that you may have done with any social media websites. For this example, we'll be using a Twitter file. So to do that, you would just go to Import, NCapture, and then you would select the file that you want to import. You can select more than one if you've done multiple hashtag searches or multiple captures of different data and import them all at once, or you can just do one at a time. And then click import and select any features you would like. I've already imported this one just to save some time, because sometimes if the file's large, it takes a little bit of time. So if you go under, once it's imported, you can go under your files here to the left and it should show up here. So my hashtag food search is right here. If you click on it, it will come up over here. It'll pull open the tab of all your data. So once it's added in, you can look at some of the features of the data that it's captured on the right. The first one is just the table that shows you the data set. Each row is a different tweet that was captured. So you'll have a tweet ID, the username if it was public, and the tweet and any hashtags that they put with their tweet. You'll also have any other public data that was available to capture, so the time, whether it was a tweet or retweet, and any other data that it was able to capture. Keep in mind, it is only going to capture publicly available data. So if the user has a private account, or if it's only you're only able to see it because you follow them, it will not capture any of that data. It only captures public data that's public for all users. And the next tab that you can click on is Form, and this will just provide the data in a form view instead of a table. It'll show, here we go, it'll show each row as an individual form, so it makes it a little bit easier to read if you're just trying to go through each one. And if you want to see more, you would just click this arrow down here and it'll go down to the second row and again show you everything as a form. The next tab is the chart tab, where you can select data to display in a chart or any other visual, and it might take a little bit to come up. But once it's up, you can select the data that you'd like to display, and it'll create an options window where you can display whatever data you are choosing to, whatever chosen variables you're looking for, whether it's usernames, hashtags, the number of followers. There's also like chart options where you can change the display. Sorry, it may take, when you're working with a large data set, sometimes it takes a little bit of time to come up, so just be patient with that. And here we go. Here's one of the charts that popped up. If you select data, you can choose what you want your X and Y axis to be. So right now it's on usernames and the number of references. So that's the number of tweets for each username. If you want to change it to hashtags and the number of tweets each hashtag got, or location or tweet types, etc., you have that option. You would just select the variables and then hit OK. You can also it's still loading, but you can also select different colors and designs of the chart. And there we go. So you can select the type of graph you'd like from this button right here, which is right next to the select data button from before. You can do column, bar, pie graph, etc. And then once you have it out, you can go ahead and do different colors. You can use the automatic colors they gave you or hit select colors and make your own. And you can explore any other options it gives you in these different bar chart options here. So the next tab that we have to look at is the cluster analysis tab here. And the cluster analysis tab basically shows grouping of whatever variable you select by word similarity. So if you hit the select data button at the top, you can select what data you would like to see a cluster analysis of. So right now it's on usernames. You can also do hashtags, mentions, locations, or a selected code or case. And we're going to cancel that. And if you'd like to zoom in, this bar down here will zoom in to the graph, and you can see how they're clustered by similarity. Up at the top, you can also see there's different options for how to display the data into different types of graphs or visuals. So you can play around with that to choose the one that's best for your data. There's also, again, the chart options will let you change the colors and stuff right here. The next option on the tabs is the map. Once it comes up, you'll be able to look at where Twitter users were tweeting from when these tweets went out. As long as the metadata is public, this is an interactive map. So if you click on each little pin, you can see the posts that are coming from that particular location. So if we selected the pin right here from Antarctica and clicked on it, a window would open up and give us all 7 of those posts. For example, there's 4 posts coming out of Honolulu, Hawaii. If we click that, then another window will pop up and show all 4 of the tweets that are coming from Honolulu. So this is pretty useful if you're trying to compare how people are talking about things differently on social media in different locations. It's a pretty useful tool. I'd also like to say that all of these charts and graphs can be exported by right-clicking on them and selecting the export option. You can also copy and paste them into any document you would like, if you would like to copy and paste it into a Word document, for example. And then the last tab is the Twitter sociogram. Unfortunately, this feature is only available on Windows and not on Macs. So if you are on a Mac, you will not see this option, but it will basically just show you the relationships between posts and tweets once it loads. Okay, so here's the Twitter sociogram that finally loaded, and you can see how all the different tweets and retweets are connected in different networks. You can zoom in and out down here and export it by right-clicking and then selecting the export option. But yeah, this will show you how they're all connected in a network, kind of like a web, and you can change how the diagram is displayed up here. The sociogram takes time to load. As you can see, it's going through loading again, just because of all the different complicated, more complex like interconnections. But yeah, that is our sociogram. So now we're going to turn to just regular coding. If we go back to the table and go to our coding option down here at the left. You can code the data manually, just like you can with regular coding from the beginner workshop. So you can code from anywhere. You can go to the table, you can go to the form, anything you would like to code, you can. So if I want to code this tweet here, I just select what I want to code and then drag it and drop it over here. So I can code this as dessert and just hit enter, and it should show up as one reference under dessert. If I keep scrolling down, I can pretty much code anything. So for instance, if I want to code this for mentioning diet, I can code that. And then anything else, I can just drag and drop and it'll code it under that. You can see how references changed to 2. So that just works like the regular NVivo functions for any data. And again, you can code from anything. If you want to do the form instead of the table, that's also fine. So you can code from here. And then once you're done coding this record, you can code the next one and just go through however you'd like. Another thing we can do is look at how a word is being used by doing a text search inquiry. So if we go to the Explore tab and hit text search, say we want to see how the word sweet is being used in all these hashtag food tweets, we can search for sweets, and you can do exact matches or stemmed words or synonyms. You can pick the level of specificity you would like over here. I'm just going to do exact matches and run the query. And you can see there was 133 references to the word sweet. If we click on this, it'll pull up all the references in another tab here. But I'm going to show you how to make a word tree. If you go down to the word tree tab here, then you can see in a visual how the word sweet is being used. It'll show the context of the word here. And again, this can be exported by just right-clicking and hitting export. But yeah, you can see all the different usage of the word sweet. And that's pretty helpful for just comparing how words are used in different contexts. Okay, so next we're going to go over auto-coding. Auto-coding is an important step for when dealing with a data set in NVivo to generate cases and classifications for any non-open-ended data. There's 3 auto-coding options that are available. If we just right-click on the data set, go back to the files, right-click on the data set, auto-code is right there, select it. And so for auto-coding, the auto-code wizard, as it's called, lets you code under theme or cases for either predefined Facebook and Twitter columns. So that could be things such as hashtags, mentions, or usernames in the case of Twitter. For Facebook, it could be things that are captured from their data, such as gender or relationship status, religion, etc. So we're gonna do the predefined first. So we're gonna use existing coding patterns and hit next. Whoops, okay, so that's not what we're supposed to select. Let me go back. I meant select to use the style or structure that's already existing. So that should give you the predefined Facebook and Twitter columns. So if we select that one and then hit next, and then we're gonna just code to codes or cases for each value in the predefined columns, and then hit next. Code. Yeah, so you can code to the cases with each user and hashtag. So we're going to leave that how it is. Hit next and hit finish. And then auto coding normally takes some time, so just be patient and wait for it to load. Okay, so our auto coding finally finished, and you can see that once it loads, we have some more coding under the codes tab. Yeah, so see we have Twitter and hashtags and some more coding under here. So the auto coding went through, and here are some of the codes. So you can go through those, and if you agree or disagree, you can also delete them. So if there's a code you don't want to keep, you can delete it. So you can go through and see what NVivo coded for you. Now we're also going to do another auto coding. If we go back to files, and this time we're going to auto code for themes. So let's do auto coding again. And then identify themes. And now it's going to identify what themes are in all of the tweets. This might take a while as it goes through all of them. Okay, these are the themes that the auto-coding has identified. I'm going to go ahead and uncheck the HTTPS because that's just the beginning of a website. So we can go ahead and take that one out since it won't give us any actual like substantive data. And then we can keep the two food and recipe themes that it identified. And then you just hit next. And here you can just decide how finely you want NVivo to code passages, if you want it to code by sentences, or if you want it to do more than that and do paragraphs, or if you want it to do like the entire cell. Just keep in mind it might take a little longer to do the smaller sentences than larger paragraphs. But we're going to go ahead and do sentences and then just hit next. Okay, and then lastly, we will just hit finish. And you can see at the bottom, if you are wondering where it is in finishing, the bottom bar right here will show you how much is still left to code. So there we go, 100%. And once it finishes loading, there we go. So now all of our themes are coded. And then last, we're gonna code for sentiments. So for auto coding for sentiments, we're gonna do the same thing where we right click on the data set. Oh, and this tab is just the themes that We auto-coded that popped up. So here's the food theme and all of the things under the food theme. And here's the recipe theme and all the things under the recipe theme. You can also look at this in the summary tab as well, or in the chart. But yeah, here are our themes. So I'm going to go ahead and close that out just because we don't need it right now. And I'm going to go back to the hashtag food, right click, and do auto coding again. And this time we're going to auto code for sentiments. This is like positive and negative associations. Just hit next. And again, you can decide how finely you want NVivo to code. I'm just going to leave it at code sentences and hit finish. And just let it run. At the bottom, you can see the progress. Just you might have to patiently wait as it works through a lot of tweets and a lot of data. Okay, and our auto-coded sentiments finally popped up. You can find them under the sentiment tab over here on the left. And then another tab will also pop up with the, once it finishes loading, with each sentiment that was coded. So anything that was coded very negative, moderately negative, positive, and moderately and very positive. And once it's completely finished loading, you'll be able to click the numbers and it'll pull up each of those tweets in another tab. You'll be able to look at all. For example, for the very negative row, you can click on the 818 and you'll be able to pull up all 818. Okay, here we go. It finally finished loading. And here you can see the different sentiments, very negative, moderately positive, and very positive. Again, if you click on the numbers, you can pull them up. I'm not going to do that just because it'll take a while to load. And then there's also a chart here where you can see them in a graph form. And again, you can like select data up here and do chart options up here if you want to change anything. That's fine. You can also pull them up from clicking the bars in the chart if you want to pull up everything that was very negative or moderately negative to compare them. And if you want to export the chart, you just right click and hit that. Again, NVivo may not auto code everything accurately, especially with sentiment. NVivo doesn't really understand sarcasm. So you'll want to go through and just make sure you agree with everything that it identified as negative versus positive. As again, NVivo does not understand sarcasm. So there may be some stuff that needs to be gone over. And then let's see, we can also go over to the chart and you can do different chart options over here as well. And this will also be in a summary form on the other tab. But you can see the positive, negative, neutral, and mixed results. Most things are actually identified as neutral. So there are some that won't be in the previous graph over here just because they're neutral. Okay, and then that is it for auto coding. So I'm going to go ahead and close this out just because we don't need it right now and go back to our full table of everything. Also going to close out the auto coded themes. All right, so now we're just going to go through a few other like social media data examples that you can use. If you go back to the Explore tab, we can do a word frequency query and a word frequency query here right under the Explore tab. will pull up a query where you can ask it to identify the most frequently used words. So right now it's set it as 1,000. That's a lot, so we're gonna go ahead and change it to 100. And I'm gonna change it to the minimum word length must be 4, just so it doesn't capture codes that are like the and that are just articles and not necessarily substantive data. Again, you can also pick the level of specificity you want if you want exact matches versus synonyms and special and generalizations, etc. So I'm gonna just do 100 most frequent exact matches and run this query. And just give it some time to go through all the data. It may take a minute. Okay, and our word frequency query finally loaded, so we can see all the words here in order of most used. So in the summary table, you can also add stop words if you see a word that you don't want included. For example, this HTTPS that keeps popping up because it's just the beginning of a website. You may want to take that out since it's not really substantive. And you would just add to stop word list right here once you right click it. And then that would make it so that this word would not appear. It would not count and it would find a different word in the 100 most frequently used. So that's helpful for like getting rid of those words like the and or HTTPS that might show up frequently, but they're normally not substantive data. So we can also see the results as a word cloud. If you click on the word cloud tab, it may take a second to load. Okay, here we go. Here's our word cloud, and it'll show the most used words by size. So the larger the size, the more it was used. And it's a pretty cool visual for just looking at how common each word was used and comparing them to the other words. You can also at the top choose if you want a different color or a different style uh, of the word cloud up here. And that's from right here at the top bar. Okay, and now our last thing we're going to do is we're going to do a text search. So if we go back to, we can go ahead and close out our word frequency results. Oh, there's also like a tree map if you're interested in that, and cluster analysis. Most people use the word cloud, but if you want to view the data in a different way, you can also do that, and it'll cluster them in a tree type looking chart. We're going to go ahead and close those out. And then the last thing, like I said, that we're going to do is do a text search. So back to the Explore tab at the top, and we're going to hit text search. And this is to see how a word is being used. So we're going to see how the word vegetarian is used. Oh, I misspelled it. Let me make sure it's spelled right or we won't get any uses. All right, and then you can choose the level of specificity you want. I'm just going to leave it with exact. And we're going to hit, and we're going to do the food file, but if you wanted to select a specific file, you would just select it here. And then run query. All right, there's 23 references to vegetarian in all these tweets. And you can, so that's the summary tab that lists the total. Then under references, you can click that tab and it will have all 23 references. It'll pull up each tweet. And then it'll also give it to you as a data set in its own little file if you want that. And then lastly, it'll give it to you as a word tree. It'll show you how vegetarian was used in each of the tweets. Okay, so we're gonna close that out now. And the last thing that we're gonna go over is how to do matrix coding. So if we can look at sentiment by theme, we're gonna go to explore matrix coding query. Okay, so to see the positive and negative associations of one of our auto-coded themes, we're in rows, we're going to put the theme we want to see. So select items and then go to codes and expand that and do auto-coded themes. And we're going to do food. That'll be in our rows, and then we're going to add sentiment. I'm going to go with positive and negative sentiment. And then hit OK. All right, and then we're going to hit run query. And there we go. So for food, it pulled up 252 references for positive and 96 references for negative. That's obviously not all 26,000 of these, or sorry, that's obviously not all of these tweets. So it identified most of them as neutral, but for positive and negative, it did find some of them. Again, you'll still want to check them to make sure. But the results can either be seen as the matrix or chart on the sidebar, and this will show you the number of positive and negative tweets for our theme of food. So here we go again, here's the chart. And it's not going to code all of them because it'll identify some as neutral, but here's what it did, the sentiments it did identify. And that is all for this video. I hope you have found it helpful for how to use NVivo to explore different ways of analyzing social media data. Thank you.